Welcome to the New You Podcast. This is your number one resource for anybody struggling along your weight loss journey. Now, I'm Antoine, a coach who specializes in fat loss, and I've coached well over 500 people in my coaching program to help them successfully lose weight. Now, the topic of today's video is going to be, Coach, am I eating enough to lose weight? And this is a question that comes up a lot. People will ask me, should I be eating 1,600 calories? Should it be 1,200 calories? Coach, I'm eating 900 calories. Is this good? So what I'm going to talk about in this video is if you're on the right path and what you should do if you're on the wrong path. So we're going to start off with the good. How do you know you are eating the right amount of calories for you? So it depends on your goal. And since I am a fat loss coach, we're going to talk about fat loss because you want to get that fat off. So you know you are on the right path if you are seeing positive body composition changes. Now notice I didn't just say weight, but there's a couple markers you can go for. That one marker is the scale. Are you seeing a decrease in scale weight? That's one marker, and that's the most common one people go for. But going off of that alone can be deceiving. So you want to look for other things, such as a decrease in your measurements. Now, the most common measurement people go for is the waist, but sometimes fat does not come off the waist first. So you want to be measuring a couple different places. You want to measure your chest, your legs, your arms. Are you seeing a decrease in any of those areas? If you are, then you are eating the right amount of calories to lose body fat. And then there is another marker. Are your clothes fitting different? If your clothes are fitting looser and people are complimenting you and you haven't told them that you've been working out or you started a diet, this is how you know you are on the right path. So that's how we keep it simple. If you see progress, do not overcomplicate things and change things up. Keep it the same until it stops working. Now let's get into the part that you were really waiting for. What to do if you are not seeing progress. So the most common reason people don't see progress is that they are not in a calorie deficit. And people think they are. There's been so many times when somebody said to me, Coach, I'm in a calorie deficit. How come I'm not losing weight? That's because you are not in a calorie deficit. Just because a calorie calculator, all right, or a BMR calculator tells you you should be eating, for example, 1,700 calories to lose body fat, that doesn't mean that number is correct for you. So what I recommend you do first is that you either move more, all right, and a way I like to do it is just by going off of steps. See how many steps you're walking every day. Let's say if it's 5,000 steps. If that's the case, up it to 7,000. Monitor your weight for a couple weeks and see if we see any changes. Now, the other thing you can change are your calories. You can decrease them. So let's say you're eating 1,700 calories and you're not seeing any changes in anything from the scale to measurements. Nobody's noticed anything and your clothes fit the same. Maybe they even fit tighter. If that is happening, decrease that number. You can decrease that 1,700 by roughly 250 calories. All right, drop it. And then see what happens over the next couple weeks. Now, this is going to be very important, especially if you're a woman. You want to weigh yourself over the course of even an entire month. And that's to account for different things like fluctuations in weight, depending where you are in your cycle, because as we know, this can affect what that scale says. So you don't want to just weigh yourself over the course of 1 week. All right, if you're a woman, give it a couple weeks and then look at your total change. If you're seeing changes, that means you are on the right path, and keep your calories there until it stops working again. And then when you stop losing, you can cut them again and you can continue this path until you get to your goal. Now, there's another situation. Let's say you're somebody who has been chronically dieting. Maybe you've been dieting for the past year, 2 years maybe. It seems like you're always in a diet and you're stuck. Your calories are already low. you're somebody, let's say you're a woman and you're eating, let's say 1,100 calories and you're not seeing any changes. If you were in this situation, I do not recommend you cut your calories lower. I also don't recommend you make your activity higher, because if you're in that situation, unless you are very, very, very small, very, very tiny, all right, then we have to reverse out of the diet for a little bit. Because if your calories are super low, all right, and I'm going to say under 1,200 calories, and let's say you're also moving, you're exercising, and you're not seeing any weight, that means that your body has taken on adaptations to battle the fact that you have been severely under eating. And you won't be able to lose any type of body fat easily unless you reverse that process. So if you're in this camp, then you need to go on a diet break. But this does not mean that you stop tracking your food and you eat whatever you want. That is a recipe for rebounding. And this is something that a lot of people do. People will go on starvation diets, cut their calories down. Maybe you're eating 900 calories per day. You are doing a ton of cardio, nothing's happening. And then you end up caving, you end up binging. And then you're stuck in this cycle where you're starving and then you're overeating. You don't want to do that. So you want to go into a reverse diet process. And when you do this, you want to slowly raise your calories over time. Bump them up a little bit. Bump your calories up between maybe 100 to 200 calories per day. All right, so let's say you're at 900 calories. Bump it up to 1,100. See what happens, all right, over the course of a couple weeks, all right? Bump it up again. And you want to keep on doing this over time until you get to a point where you start gaining body fat, because you don't want to gain all the weight back. So once you start seeing that increase, then you can pull back. So maybe this happens around maybe 1,400 calories, all right? Now we're in a good position where you can start losing body fat again. Now there's another part to this to make sure this is productive, because you want to do more than just increase your food over time. All right, that alone is not going to be enough to give you the max result for when you decide to diet back down again. You want to make sure you are training properly. All right, progressive overload is the way I always recommend. So this is making some aspect more difficult. You're adding weight, you're adding reps, you're adding sets. The idea is to build up muscle while your calories are slowly increasing. I know some people probably think, oh my goodness, but coach, will I get bulky? Will I get huge? No, you will not. And you have to do this. Because if you don't, you're going to always be stuck. Somebody who's under eating, doing a ton of cardio and not seeing any kind of progress. So just accept that you're in the reverse dieting phase. You slowly eat more. You start putting on more muscle, more strength. And then after you've done this for a while, but this is not a quick process. You don't do this for 2 weeks and think, coach, I'm ready to diet. You don't do this for 1 month. You need to spend time doing this. And for many people, especially if you're somebody who's been chasing the scale for years, I know it's hard to make that mental shift, but the shift will be very important. All right, you have to accept that right now, we're not going to lose fat. We're going to undo some of those adaptations in the metabolism. That way I can eventually start losing fat again. All right, and once you've gone through this process, let's say, you were eating 900 calories at the beginning. You start reversing out, you started eating more, you started training properly, slowly. Then let's say you end up at, let's call it 1,700 calories, and you haven't gained any body fat. Now you probably gained some weight, but not body fat. What do you think is going to happen when you cut your calories now by 250? You're going to start losing that body fat, and you're going to be able to do it eating more food. This is why it is important to have a long-term viewpoint of this. A lot of us want it quick, but for many people, especially if you're somebody who's a chronic dieter, somebody who's a yo-yo dieter, somebody who has been basically starving themselves, you have to take a more long-term approach. So instead of thinking to yourself, okay, I'm going to get to my goal weight, drop 30 pounds in a month, Don't view it that way. Say to yourself, okay, over the course of a year, I'm going to be able to get to my goal. Think longer. That way you give yourself time to, let's say, diet down. Or if you're somebody who's under eating, you give yourself time to undo some of those, I don't want to call them negative changes, but some of the changes that our bodies have that makes it difficult to lose weight. You can undo some of that stuff. It'll take longer. But at the end of that year, let's say half a year, you will be able to lose fat eating more. And you will look and feel better. All right, so that is it for today's podcast. Hope everybody is having the best day. If you need help along your journey and you don't know where to start, you can find me on Facebook under Antoine D. Lindsay. You can also find me on Instagram and TikTok at _Modern Sapien.